Good morning, everybody. I apologize for there not being a podcast the past 2 days. I was at Turning Point and sitting in on their training for Chase the Vote to see exactly what they were doing. And it's going to be amazing what this organization is setting up to do. I think that the goal is to have touched and been in contact by the election time of over 280,000 disengaged Republican voters here in Arizona. And that number, 287,000, will actually, we could have won every single election that we lost, every single race that we lost here in Arizona. That would have made that difference. So it's really incredible. And, when I was part of Women for Trump and going around and doing a lot of speaking at Trump events and stuff during the 2020 election season, they had put together all of these coalitions like Women for Trump, Blacks for Trump, Asians for Trump, Veterans for Trump, and Latinos for Trump, and all these coalitions. And it was awesome and it was great. And it was actually outreach in the community. And I remember after it was in December of that year that we had a big phone call. And I was like, you guys can't let these coalitions go by the wayside. You can't do that because it's just going to be exactly what the Democrats do, reaching out to voters only in an election year and using you for your vote. You have to keep these people engaged and you have to make them understand that Republicans care about them, right? And I said, you can change all of the coalition names to Latinos for America, Women for America. Any of those things could just be changed to America so that it could go on into the future indefinitely. And you would never have to cycle it out because it had a campaign or a candidate's name in the coalition title. But they didn't do it. And they let all those coalitions go by the wayside. I mean, I think the hardcore followers of Trump who were part of those coalitions, I don't think they went anywhere. And I think a lot of the local chapters stayed together and are still functioning and have resurrected and are pulling in more members now. But what Turning Point Action is doing is putting together the Women's Coalition, the Latino Coalition, and that's their titles. And it's really very, very successful. And, I asked a question when I was watching the training and said, is this going to go on into the future? Like, this was a mistake that the Trump campaign made. And they said, that's a beautiful thing about these coalitions is we're going to keep them going forever, keep these voters engaged. And when you think about the percentage of registered Republicans here in Arizona who didn't vote in the 2020 election, it's astounding. And the same thing happened in the 2022 election here in Arizona. So these young Republicans getting out and knocking on doors and engaging with these disengaged Republican voters. So they are the people who haven't voted in the last 1, 2. Those are the ones they're really going to be concentrating on, is the ones who have not registered in the last one or voted in the last 1 or 2 presidential elections. So that will bring those people back into the fold and explain to them, how important it is to vote. But the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to be engaged on a neighborly fashion because they're trying to get people in neighborhoods to be that person to go out and knock on their neighbors' doors and create a very close-knit neighborhood. And that would be an incredible thing just because of the way that society is today. Neighborhoods just they don't talk to each other. And here in Arizona, yes, we've got apartment complexes, but we've got rural, sprawling type neighborhoods, subdivisions. And it's pretty difficult. You have both parents working and they leave in the morning and get their kids to school, or leave early in the morning to get all the way over to Phoenix to work. And they come home and they're exhausted and they're fixing dinner and they're helping their kids with homework, and they're getting them to bed, and then they're flopping down themselves to watch a little bit of TV before they head to bed. So there's not a whole lot of time to be social with your neighbors. And I'm sure that's the way it is across the United States. That's just what we've become as a society. And then on top of that, here in Arizona in the summertime, when kids are on school break and parents take some time off from work to be with their kids, now you got the heat that's barreling down on us, and it's unbearable to be outside for any length of time, unless you have a pool out back and you invite your neighbors over to swim all afternoon. So, that puts another little crimp in the type of outdoor neighborhood type environment you have in other parts of the country where you have a mild summer. So anyway, I think, and encouraging these neighbors, these young people going out and engaging with these voters to plan some barbecues, or, have an indoor event at a HOA community center, homeowners association community center, that type of thing. I think that we're going to find Arizona's going to make a huge difference in this next election. We're going to bring this state back to the red state that it's always been. There's already so many districts in Arizona that were very low registered Republicans, that had more registered Democrat voters in a lot of our legislative districts here statewide. And it's amazing the effort that's been put in by organizations like Turning Point and Scott Pressler and his organization, and getting people registered to vote. Yes, Laura, in the name of Jesus, we have to bring Arizona back to a good state, and get the evilness out of the government here in Arizona. We have to, work on getting this majority in the state house and the Senate. And as you can see, Miss Bella has her Bella. Yeah, she's got her big fat bone, so she may be a little noisy in the background, and I apologize for that. It's the only way to keep her busy, though, while I'm on my podcast. Anyway, we have to bring goodness back to the state of Arizona. We have to bring righteousness. We have to bring conservatism. We have to be caring about the people who live in Arizona, and not make it about a political party's agenda of bringing America and bringing Arizona to its knees. That isn't what we need, folks. We're never going to survive. So we need to get that majority in the House and the Senate here in Arizona, so that we are able to, as legislators, which I know I'm going to win this race. I know that I'm going to be down there making a difference in Arizona. We need to be able to override these vetoes that Governor Hobbs is doing on all of the good conservative type bills that have been brought forward about securing the border here in Arizona, about election security, about the school vouchers for the kids, to be able to have educational freedom and not have to go to the institutionalized public schools that allow indoctrination of our kids. We have to have accountability of every dollar that goes out of our budget. We have to have annual accountability from anybody receiving money out of the annual Arizona budget. It's the only way to rein in this ridiculous spending that's going on. And you're seeing throughout the country, sorry, my allergies are going crazy this morning. You're seeing throughout the country, there was just another one, an attorney. She was, I don't know, I can't remember if she was a judge or what, but she was, let me pull it up. She was just sentenced to prison because she stole money from the COVID money in Georgia. Where does this sound familiar, right? The money that went to, that's not where I'm going to find it. The money that went to Fannie Willis's office for a particular project, and a whistleblower came forward and said that isn't what the money is being spent on. And so now Georgia legislators are investigating that. It's time that there is accountability, and all of these places that get all of these large amounts of money have to give an annual report. Okay, here's where we spent the money that you gave us during the last budget. Here it is. Democrat Atlanta prosecutor jailed for stealing 15 million of COVID funds to buy a Rolls Royce, folks, and a 10-carat diamond ring. So here these Democrats are doing all of these things, these Soros-backed prosecutors, going in and basically, here, let me share this with you so you can get the actual feel for this. That's not it. I'm not going to be able to share it. Anyway, this is it. It's kind of weird with this camera. Like, how do I hold it? So there she is, folks. $15 million of COVID funds to buy herself a Rolls Royce and a 10-carat diamond ring. That's the kind of prosecutors, federal prosecutors, state prosecutors that we have in place in our country doing this sort of thing. And they don't care that they are causing havoc in their communities with this money not going to where it's supposed to be going. I mean, it was ridiculous anyway, in my personal opinion, how much money that they gave to the states for the COVID relief. It was another way of just starting out the beginning of the bankrupting of the United States. COVID money, what a joke. And now we know the billions of dollars that they spent, and even the businesses. Look at the grocery stores. I mean, my local grocery store here, they had, the sanitizing wipes all over the place. And of course, they fell for the whole crap where they put arrows on the aisles. You were only allowed to walk one way down an aisle. They had arrows like you had to follow the arrows. You couldn't walk past somebody in the aisle. They had plexiglass put up at all of the cashiers things. They had plastic things covering the pin pad for your ATM card when you were paying for it. Think about the money that they forced all of these businesses to spend for this COVID protection that didn't even work. The millions and billions of dollars that we spent to schools, to communities, to government, to state governments for COVID protection. And now what are we finding out? That it was all a bunch of garbage. None of that stuff was helping. It was a common cold on a higher, scale of scariness. And the people who were more vulnerable were the ones who were going to get it the worst. And then think about the ventilators, the amount of money that were spent on ventilators. And that whole tent thing set up in Central Park with all those beds and all those ventilators next to them. Do you remember that? Think about the scare tactics that they were using with us. And who knows if they were even ventilators or if they were just, prototypes that weren't even anything that would work. They were just setting it all up to take a picture of it, to put it out on social media to scare the bejeebies out of everybody. That's what was going on. And they didn't care what they were doing to our mental health. They didn't care that people were locking themselves in their houses and they wouldn't come out. They don't care that elderly patients in nursing homes died by themselves because they wouldn't let their family members in. I was watching this video on Instagram that somebody reposted of a family that they lost the dad, the husband, and they were older kids, adults. And the mother was sitting all by herself at the front, and they had to be 6 feet apart in chairs. And it was very sparsely attended because they couldn't allow all those people in there. And the mother was sobbing, and the two adult sons pulled their chair over to sit next to their mom, and they both had their arms around her. And the funeral director came out and made them move back away. How disgusting is that they did that to us? Honestly. And they're doing it again. They're pulling up all these little scare tactics of all of these. This is coming next. You know, the first strain of, I can't even remember what it was. It was so stupid the other day, the thing that I read. The first strain of pig flu has been transmitted to a human. Something stupid along those lines. And that's all somebody needs to look at in some cases and freak out. They just need one little headline that'll freak them out because they are, I can't remember the name of a person who is a clean freak and medically afraid of everything. But think about those types of people. I mean, I'm still right now in Arizona, with it being 110 to 115 degrees right now, I'm still seeing people in masks outside, walking along the street alone, or in their car, or at the grocery store. It's like, come on now. I don't understand how COVID could live in 115 degree weather anyway. But it's really kind of crazy. And you know what? If there's a medical condition that somebody has to wear a mask, then by all means wear it. Not making fun of you, you know, not trying to make you feel bad that you're doing that sort of thing. But when you see the amount of people that I see out wearing masks, it's like, there's no way. There's no way. I think it's just fear tactics, and they're listening to the mainstream media try and bring something up. They have to have some sort of control over the American people because it's an election year, folks. And 2020 wasn't an election year. And that's when the whole mail-in ballot fiasco started, because they tried to convince everybody, stay home. You have to stay home and vote from home. We'll mail you your ballot. You stick it out on your mailbox and the mailman will pick it up. Which I just want to warn all of you. I put some pre-stamped mail out on my mailbox a few weeks ago. And luckily it wasn't anything important, but I stuck it out there. And later that afternoon, my neighbor came over, and it was 3 pieces of mail. Later that afternoon, my neighbor came over and said, hey, the mailman put this in our box by mistake. Luckily, I had a return sticker on it so that they knew where it was coming from. But my mailman took my outgoing mail at my mailbox and ended up putting it in my neighbor's mailbox. So I will never put another piece of pre-stamped mail out on my mailbox for my mailman to take, because I may not have a neighbor like the one next door who brought it to me. It may be 5 neighbors down the street. He may just throw it in the garbage at the end of the day because he doesn't want to do that sort of thing. I don't know. We got a big problem with the U.S. Postal Service. I had a friend in Texas who ordered 2 different bracelets from 2 different companies. One that was up in Wyoming, I think, or Montana, and the state of Washington. And the other one was out of Houston, Texas, and she's in Texas herself. And neither of the bracelets showed up. And so she called each of the companies. She got her money back, but she ended up calling the post office, and a local one in the small town out of Washington State where it came out of, and then somehow got a hold of somebody at a Houston post office. No, she went to the small post office there by her house. And she lives in a very rural area. So it's these teeny weeny little towns and these teeny weeny little post offices. And they told her, yeah, we're having a big problem with the new system that they uploaded here at the United States Postal Service. And I don't know if any of you have seen those commercials where it shows this automated postal service with all these conveyor belts and these trucks, and, you know, we're going to be doing better. We've upgraded everything. And well, it's that new upgrade that they did and they were bragging about on these TV commercials that is causing the havoc. And both of these people that she talked to, one in Washington State and one in Texas, told her, yeah, we have tons of packages that are missing. So where are they going? And then the week after I had that conversation with her, it's a video that I saw on Instagram of a mail carrier who is ripping open envelopes and taking money out of these envelopes and gift cards and throwing these things away. So not only do you have a system that may be sending your boxes or packages to who knows where, and then you have postal workers who are stealing money, gift cards and those sort of things right out from underneath your nose, or taking your mail and sticking it in a neighbor's mailbox, not even getting it to the post office to be mailed out. So with all that being said, how many of you trust the post office to take your mail-in ballot and for it to get down to the state and your vote really count this year? It's a good question, right? But in this training that Turning Point Action was having, and you know, there's a lot of controversy over what they're doing with some of the diehard Republicans, and they're saying no at the LD meetings, you know, no, don't support that. We want one day, you know, paper ballots, one day voting, going back to precinct voting. Yes, that's what we all want, because that's what worked in the past. And that's how we got immediate results that night, right? But it's not going to happen in 2024 because things have not changed. The law has not been changed here in Arizona because we have a Democratic Secretary of State. We have a questionable Stephen Richter working at the county recorder's office. And we've got a Democratic governor who vetoes every single piece of legislation that the conservative Republican legislators are bringing forward about election integrity. So it's never going to happen in 2024. So what are we going to do? Sit around and do nothing and allow the same things that have been going on to keep going on now? Or are we going to step up and do something like Turning Point Action is trying to do to change the scenario, to get these disengaged voters out there? This is not chasing the ballot that like the Democrats do. Chasing the vote is engaging with the disengaged voters and getting them to understand the importance of their voice and their vote and why they need to become back engaged again this year. Because staying disengaged and then complaining about what's happening around you is not good. You're part of the problem. And this is what these disengaged voters need to understand. So they you know, said this repeatedly in the training and had all of the people in there at the training repeat, we are not allowed to touch the ballot. They can't, these people, they can't hand their ballot over to these vote chasers at the door and say, will you get mine to the post office? They can't do that. That's against the law in Arizona. The Democrats do that in Arizona, but the Republicans will not, who are doing this. We will not be touching the ballot. We can give them a ride to the post office to drop their ballot off. We can give them a ride. She's going to turn into a wild woman now. We can give them a ride to the polling places on election day to vote. And that's the type of help that they're going to be offering to the community, to the disengaged Republican voters. We have to come together as a conservative party, the Republicans do. We've got to come together to get our fellow registered Republicans back in the fold and to become a strong, united political party here in Arizona. We have to take our state back. The Democrats are very good of showing a united front. You know, you're seeing some fractures in there right now. There's always been kind of that fracture with AOC and, you know, Rashid Tlaib and Ilmar, but and Presley, the squad. You've kind of seen some discourse there. Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of causes some discord in the Republican Party because there's not a whole lot of people who agree with her brass way of doing things. But you didn't see that a lot with the Democratic Party. But I think a lot of these elected officials, these Democratic elected officials, are realizing Joe Biden doesn't stand a chance. He is a shell of a man. Whatever medical prescription cocktail they give him at certain times to be able to function like he did at the State of the Union, it's awesome that they're able to make him look good. Not awesome. It's kind of scary and sad, but that isn't something that can go on forever. And the use of those kind of drugs to enhance his ability to communicate and to be awake and more aware of the situation that he may be in with heads of states and stuff. How much longer can his body tolerate that sort of thing? And can they pull it off for 4 more years if he's reelected? They can't. And if he's reelected and Kamala Harris is his vice president, she will be the next president of the United States, folks. But I honestly feel, especially with Hunter Biden's conviction that just happened on the gun charges, in my gut, something is telling me that something's going to happen at the Democratic National Party at the convention. They're going to try and pull something off. Whether it's bring somebody else up, I don't know. Come here, say hi. Say hi to everybody. Yes, this is my little bugaboo baby. And I've been gone for the past 3 days, so she doesn't like that I'm sitting here at the desk talking to you and not to her. And Nibbles, my other rescue. Nibbles, can you come up here and say hi? She's my older lab mix rescue. I came home the other night and she wouldn't even put any pressure on her back hind leg, and I had to get her to the emergency vet that night. Almost $1,000 later, come to find out that it could possibly be, some damage to her ACL. And they're talking about $6,000 of surgery. And I'm like, yeah, give me some anti-inflammatories and some pain pills. And I bought her a brace for her back leg. She had it on last night for about 10 minutes, disappeared and came back with it off. And it's got 4 strips of Velcro that go around her leg. And when I found it, all the Velcro was in place. It was almost like she grabbed a hold of it with her teeth and pulled it off over her foot. These 2 dogs keep me on my feet, let me tell you. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know how they think that Joe Biden is the guy. When you look at a compilation that I saw of all of these things that he's done in these situations with other heads of state, and having other countries' leaders come to the White House, and how he walks around, shuffles his feet like he doesn't know where he is. And the past, when he was over in France for the D-Day celebrations, and watching Jill, his wife, hold his hand and lead him everywhere and take him out of that event ceremony early after he had squatted down like he was trying to sit down, which, by the way, I've seen videos where they're doing it now where it's called Do the Biden. And so it's funny. It's like at different parties, all these people drinking, and then they all try and act like they're squatting to sit in a seat and stand up. And it's pretty hilarious watching how some of them do it. So it's called Do the Biden. A new dance move, folks. But watching her take control as his handler and, holding her hand over her mouth and saying things to him, God knows what she's saying. You better wake the hell up or you're going to get it when you get back to the hotel room. Who knows what they're doing to this man? That's the scary part of it all, because these people are evil. They don't care about people, about the person, about what happens to you. They don't care about angel families. They don't care about my son. They don't care about Laura's grandson. They don't care about Kian Michael, who's a Florida state representative now. They don't care about her son, Brandon, who was killed, and Laura's grandson, Fernando. They don't care about these people who were killed by illegal criminals in our state, in our countries, in our country, in our states. Because you guys our children and grandchildren were just collateral damage. We don't care. They don't care. They could care less. And you know what? That's how we were feeling until 2015, when then candidate Trump reached out to us and said, I want to meet you when I'm in your state. Will you come to my rally, and will you come up on the stage and tell your story about your son, Marianne, who was a great police officer? Yes, I will. Thank you very much for recognizing this as an issue. And I'm going to repeat this again right now. Although it was 10 years ago, and it's a very long time, it feels like it was yesterday, but 10 years has passed of us fighting and talking about how bad this was and the magnitude of people being affected then. And let me tell you what, I don't care what these politicians say, and I don't care what these media jerks say when I come out in the public and repeat this sort of thing. And Steve King, Representative Steve King from Iowa, got a bunch of guff about this. But he was told, and I've been told by the American Sheriff's Association, some of the sheriffs that are involved, that about 25 Americans a day were being killed by illegal criminals 10 years ago in our country. And when I started doing the math on it, I realized that since 9/11, more Americans had been killed in the United States on our homeland by illegal criminals than the men who were killed in the Vietnam War in Vietnam, the American soldiers. So since 9/11 to 2017, I think it was, more Americans had been killed in America on our homeland by illegal criminals than American soldiers who were killed in Vietnam. Now, that's till 2017. Now what? I know how many American families are affected every year. I see the articles, folks. I have a research woman who does unbelievable work for me and digs up articles from all over this country, from the obscure little newspapers and from websites and stuff. I know the American government and the media is really doing a huge disservice to you and not telling you and not letting you know how serious a problem this is becoming. And now we've come to find out over 40% of law enforcement departments in the United States, across the United States, have quit reporting crime statistics. Now, why do you think that is? Because the amount of illegal crime has risen to a point where they don't want you aware of it, folks. And so we're just going to quit reporting any crime, because once they start putting those statistics out, you will have people in the communities like me, like my research girl, like some other illegal immigration hawks, calling them and questioning them about the immigration status of these people who committed crimes in their communities. They can't have that. They can't let that information get out. Why do you think they want to keep it so hard that law enforcement can't ask, what is your legal status? But here's the thing. A police officer is not stupid. When they pull over an illegal for a traffic violation, and I was on ride-alongs with my son, folks, and this happened twice, 2 different times I was on ride-alongs with him. And I went on a ride-along with one of his friends, and it happened that night with that friend too. When they pull these illegals over and they ask them for their driver's license or their insurance card. Now, mind you, this was before 2014 when my son was killed. I was doing ride-alongs with him. So it was 2012 or 13 that I was doing ride-alongs with him. And this was happening here in Arizona. They don't have a driver's license. They don't have insurance. And so they pull out their passport. No, they didn't even have passports. They pulled out some sort of paperwork from Mexico. One guy pulled out a birth certificate out of his glove box. And my son's like, you can't drive a vehicle here on a Mexican birth certificate. and so he made them pull over and get out of the car and said, I won't impound your vehicle, but you need to leave it here. Can I help you get call somebody to come get you? No, we'll walk home. And Brandon said, I know they're going to be back here and get this car within a few minutes. And so he had another call to get to. And so we ran to that call and we came back, and sure enough, the car was gone out of the parking lot. And we weren't gone but about 15 minutes. It was a minor traffic violation. He just made sure that it was like a bumper tap. And so he just made sure that people had exchanged information, and we went right back to the site. So there's no way that guy walked home and got somebody to drive back and drive his car and get out of there. He just started walking up the block, turned around and went back and got in the vehicle and drove off again. They don't care that they're breaking the law. They don't care that they're driving around without a driver's license, without insurance. They don't care, because they know if they get caught up in it, they're going to get a slap on the hand, and that's about it. And in other states, at least the Mesa Fire or Police Department does handle things. And Mesa Police Department is recognized as an anti-sanctuary police department, which I really find hard to believe. Because of leadership, because of who our mayor is, and they're the ones who give the direction to the police department of how they're to handle that sort of thing. Anyway, so we've got a very important election coming up. Super proud of Turning Point Action for putting this all together. And, my sister and I have been talking recently about how amazing Charlie Kirk's story is, that he started this Turning Point USA out of his garage as an 18 or 19-year-old, and what it has grown into, and the amount of donors, big donors, who believe in him. And while I was there, I because I was at Turning Point Action building at this training situation, and it's a great work environment for these young Republican conservatives who are there working. It's I think it would rival and challenge Google, how they show how friendly it is to the younger generation. It's really a great work environment, and everybody is so friendly and so nice there, and it's not fake and it's not forced. That's the one thing that you can tell about it. But I went over to the Turning Point USA building, which is where Charlie Kirk is, and because Turning Point Action is the political side of Turning Point, and Turning Point USA is their 501c3. And Turning Point Action is their 501c4. So that's why they can get so involved politically. But anyway, went over to the Turning Point USA building and saw the studio where Charlie does his podcast. Tyler Bauer and all them do their podcast. Huge setup over there. And just thinking as I'm going over there and seeing these buildings about how this all started out in the garage of Charlie when he was a young man. It's totally amazing what a movement this has become and how many people are engaged with that. And my oldest granddaughter is an employee at Turning Point Action. So she left this morning to head to Detroit because they're having a huge kickoff there for the training for the Chase the Vote. They're going to be doing a lot of training there in Michigan. They're hitting all the states that are really important in this election: Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona. There's a handful of others. And even though, there's a lot of swing states, I just don't want to name the wrong ones that Turning Point Action's getting involved in. But kudos to them for putting this whole thing together and activating all these young people and getting them out door knocking in their communities. I don't know what's going on with the internet connection this morning. This isn't a very good connection, is it? All right. I do want to, my thing, I do want to go over a couple of articles that my research gal, I couldn't even believe how many articles were coming over to me yesterday, folks. My phone just kept going off. It was just like, I can't believe how many of these crimes that she finds. It is absolutely insane. All right, June 6th. Yeah, of course, I'm sure you all heard that. As a former FBI assistant director, I have never been more terrified. Let me bring this up for you. I don't know if this screen is all shaky for you guys. Oh my goodness, these ads that come up are ridiculous. You can't even focus in on an article. As a former, let me get rid of these. Of course, they'll just come back more. As a former FBI director, I have never been more terrified of an imminent terror attack on U.S. soil, and warns Chris Schrecker Biden's open border idiocy will be to blame. FBI Director Christopher Wray, testifying just across at Capitol Hill in the Senate, issues the same warning, saying the U.S. domestic security is in the worst condition he's ever seen it. His agency has recently disrupted multiple terrorist attacks in cities and communities around the country, he revealed. And it was only in December that Wray first publicly sounded the alarm about this growing menace in the aftermath of Hamas's cowardly October 7th attack on Israel. Given the steady drumbeat of calls for attacks by foreign terrorist organizations since October 7th, we're working around the clock. So where and why is the FBI not cracking the Biden administration and Mayorkas in particular over the head with a big club? Why isn't there any coordination? I mean, why isn't Mayorkas or Biden listening to Christopher Wray, the FBI, the Department of Justice, when they talk about these imminent threats and how scary it's getting? And you know, they're not even vetting these people anymore, folks, at the border. It's just not happening. And maybe I can find that article. There are so many articles. Police chief outraged after illegal alien allegedly causes a car crash that killed a mother and a daughter in Michigan. I'll get to that other article. This is the guy. The suspect was found to have no legal status in the country. He was driving a box truck southbound, about 30 miles north of Detroit. Suddenly, he allegedly ran into a black Verano, triggering a series of car crashes involving at least 2 other vehicles. And so a 63-year-old woman and her 88-year-old mother both died in the crash. And he was later charged with 2 counts of moving violation causing death. He remains in custody under a $250,000 bond. So this police chief said that the accident was definitely preventable. And see, this is something that we've talked about as angel families when we talk about our child, our grandchild, our father, mother's death, how it's preventable. And people are like, like in my case, there's drunk drivers all the time. It could have been an American just as easily. It could have been, but it wasn't. And so if you don't have these illegal criminals in your country, that crime and that death of my son wouldn't have happened, because that dude wouldn't have been here. And that's what people can't wrap their head around. And this sort of thing we're hearing a lot of. Don't tell me. All right. I don't know why. Anyway, California owes the federal government $53 million in illegally obtained Medicaid reimbursements for non-citizens. Police arrest. I don't know if any of you have heard of there's a subdivision up over in Texas, and it's called Colony Ridge. And police arrest a second illegal immigrant murder suspect living in Colony Ridge. So it's a sprawling land development just north of Houston that has become infamous for legally suspect financial and marketing tactics that seek to attract illegal immigrants. And so they just, Splendora Police Department announced the June 7th arrest of Juan Jose Cruz over murder charges in Mexico in a post, making him the second illegal immigrant murder suspect and Colony Ridge murder suspect apprehended by authorities in just the last 2 weeks. So is this becoming a haven for illegal criminals? The development came under additional scrutiny late last year after a teen was allegedly abducted at gunpoint inside Colony Ridge and was shot as he fled his captors. So Colony Ridge has been the subject of a series of Daily Wire investigations detailing the development's alleged marketing to illegal immigrants. Led by brothers John and Trey Harris, Colony Ridge encourages potential buyers to own land in the United States and accepts foreign passports as a form of identification when offering loans. So the population explosion experienced by Colony Ridge come as the country has faced the worst border crisis in its history. Officials have so far recorded over 9.5 million nationwide encounters and 1.7 million estimated illegal immigrant gotaways during the Biden term. Splendora is a Texas town of less than 2,000 and is one of the many small towns that's been severely affected by the growth of Colony Ridge, which is projected to have anywhere from 45,000 to 75,000 residents just outside the town of Splendora, which is less than 2,000 residents. The development has now come under the serious legal scrutiny and faces lawsuits from the Department of Justice, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who told the Daily Wire that literally every sale made by Colony Ridge could have been in violation of consumer financial protection law. So this ought to be interesting to see what happens. But I don't know if any of you had heard about this Colony Ridge because it's been in the news a lot. And there have been a lot of illegal criminals pulled up in that subdivision. And again, the tactics that they were using to even sell the land was a little questionable to me. Using passports as their form of identification. So we all know that Biden has done this new border security thing, this executive order that he did. But what they keep under the wire and don't let you really know about is that he orders the release of single adults from 100 plus countries at top immigration sector. So it's in San Diego, and the Border Patrol agents in Southern California are reportedly under orders to release single adults immigrating to the U.S. from the Eastern Hemisphere and classify them as hard or very hard to remove. The memo applies to all countries in the Eastern Hemisphere, which number more than 100 except for 6. And of course, Russia, Georgia, Moldova, and Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Those are the 6 that they won't let anybody in from. But Single adults from easy to remove countries: Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, Venezuela, process as ER or withdraw. Northern Triangle, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, process as NTA. And anyway, so the point of showing you this article is he's full of crap. And so he's got all these little nuances, like the phone app. If they've done it on the phone app, they won't be counted in the 2,500 a day. So they use the phone app and show up at the border, and they're escorted across the border and welcomed as Biden's newcomers to the United States. That's the wonderful phone app that Mayorkas put together for these people. So they're not counted in the 2,500. And now he orders a release of single adults from 100 plus countries. So are these single adults being counted in the 2,500? This is what we don't know. And this is the craziness behind the Biden administration. Let me see what time it is. I think I'm at the end of my time. I'm at the end of my time. I'm going to have to cut my podcast short. Had a lot to talk about today. Oh, no. Yeah, it is time. So anyway, I had a lot to catch up on and a lot to talk to you guys about, but I'm going to go into this weekend, hopefully be out for my campaign. Of course, this little girl knows I'm saying goodbye. Don't you, Bella? And I hope you all have a great weekend. So does Bella. Come here. Quit being so annoying. Hey. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to go take care of my little doggy, my little brat. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys back on Tuesday. We won't have any of the repeat. We won't have any of the repeat podcasts. I will be doing new live all week. Talk to you soon.